Hello and welcome to the Weekend Booktopian. I'm Mark Harding, Content and Brand Manager for Booktopia, and this is a podcast about what we're reading at the moment. Joining me today are Sam Joice, Campaigns Manager. Hello, Sam.
Hi, Mark.
We're also joined by Cass Sharp, our Merchandising Coordinator. Hi, Cass.
Hi. Hey.
And we're joined by Nick Wasiliev, Social Media Specialist and Producer of this podcast.
Hello.
So first we're going to discuss a little bit of book news, then we'll delve into the books everyone is planning to read, and be sure to stick around until the end of the show when my three guests are going to go head-to-head in a big battle for book quiz supremacy that we like to call Book Fight. Hope you guys are ready. Spill some blood. It doesn't get violent. You can relax. All right.
Oh, I think it does. As the editor of them, I think it gets very violent. Very.
I mean, Dee was very proud that she won Book Fight, and I was like, wait, what is it? It's a trivia thing about books.
She still talks about that every time I've gone into the office. Just being like, I was the first one.
Okay, so let's get into our book news before we get sidetracked. British crime author Mark Dawson has lost a top 10 spot on the Sunday Times bestseller list after he bought 400 copies of his own book, which jumped it from number 13 on the list to number 8. What are the ethics around this? Who has an opinion?
What are the ethics around this? I mean, I believe he was number 13, and then he purchased copies to put himself into the top 10. And I can understand, he's thinking, people in the top 10, they get, exposure, and there's always, lists and summaries, and it's newsworthy to do that. He did buy the books, like he did spend real money and bought them from a real bookstore. It's a bit of a grey area. I guess it really depends on the who's calculating those spots. I think in this case it was Bookscan, what their policies are around what they decide is a genuine purchase. It's their data, I guess. It's their rules that really come into play.
Are there any issues around this? Like, are we surprised that the list is manipulated in this way?
A lot of things can be manipulated, so.
I think we've seen other things where people have done something similar and bought lots of copies of their own book. Because I feel like this has happened before, and I just can't remember who it was or anything else about it. But it was like someone was ringing up like different bookstores and placing like strangely large orders of one particular book that no one had heard of. And then suddenly they were like quite far up the list. I don't know. Maybe this is something that needs to be clarified by Nielsen or whoever's running like these big lists, like New York Times and all that, saying like if you buy 1,000 copies of your own book, that doesn't count. So even if you then sell them to other people.
So the New York Times actually has a way of dealing with this, which they instituted, I think, late last year when Donald Trump Jr. had a book out, and the RNC bought like $100,000 worth of copies of it. And so they put on the list, they put a little dagger next to it to indicate that it's a bulk order.
Yeah.
I don't think he's done himself any favours at all by doing this as well, because, I mean, a lot of his shtick as well is based on, he likes to pride himself on being a self-published author. I mean, and he even admitted to doing this on his podcast, which is called The Self-Publishing Show. I mean, I think ironically, it doesn't exactly send a good message about self-publishing, does it? That you're buying so many copies of your own book.
I think that it's important for the lists, these, to not be gamified or manipulated because, at a large scale, because it ends up privileging people who have the capital to actually make those purchases. There are a lot of avenues for authors, whether they're self-published or not, to place bulk orders to service, their own database or direct sales. They can buy them directly from the publisher in a lot of cases, or if they're self-publishing, obviously from the printer. They don't have to go through a bookstore to create that sales record So I think that the New York Times' approach of having a dagger in there to say, well, we know this is coming from a bulk order. It's either for an event or it's either not a genuine, customer bookstore to customer, personal customer sale. I'm more worried that if this happens repeatedly, because people do see the results, this guy got in the news twice at least, he got on the lists, that it will just privilege people who already have that capital.
Yeah. As I understand it, this kind of practice is actually relatively common in other industries, like the music industry. I read an article in like 2009, back when the music industry was quite different and people still bought music. And that was about how, Sony would send production assistants down to like the local HMV. That's dating me.
Yeah.
And like buying 900 copies of the latest CD single. I sound like a grandpa.
It happens. It even happens like these times right now. Like I think this time last year, Justin Bieber dropped a single called, I think it was Yummy, and he basically said to all of his fans, "I want you to play this song back to back I want you to get millions and millions and millions of plays because I want to get the song to #1 on the US charts." And basically just said to all of his fans and all the people who follow him and have that following, just literally play it back to back. Even do it while you're asleep. Put it on mute and play it while you're asleep, which is really, it's not exactly
the best way to listen to a Justin Bieber song.
I actually remember when streaming services started that there was an indie band that did that. It was like, put this on mute, play while you're asleep, and they got their revenue, and they got their streaming royalties from that.
With K-pop, because I'm a fan of K-pop, there's like a structured way of watching like a new video and then watching a few other things to ensure that like your views count as separate views, and ways to like drive up those numbers because everyone's doing it. And like you just see these enormous numbers like 700 million and something like that in 24 hours. And it's wild. But kind of coming back to your point about Donald Trump, there was an interesting thing about how K-pop fans booked out all these tickets to a Donald Trump event and then no one turned up. So it was like mostly empty. People like, I can't believe they did this. It's like, yeah, BTS did it.
Yeah, K-pop fans are awesome allies. That's
yeah.
So while we're talking about the music industry, a big musician announced a memoir recently, and that big musician and personality is Mariah Carey, who is going to have an autobiography out at the end of the year. Who here is a fan of this stunning diva? Aside from me.
Mark's grabbing a lot of the enthusiasm. She does have an incredible voice, though, and she's had a very interesting life, so that should be quite cool to see in her own words in a book.
I mean, the marketing campaign writes itself because it'll be released at the end of the year. All I want for Christmas is name of.
I knew you'd fall for that. I knew you'd jump on that.
Write that down, Nick. Write that down.
I'm just doing a daughter promotion campaign.
This is literally my job all the time. Mark says something like this, and I'm like, oh, okay. While I'm personally not a big fan of Mariah Carey, what is so fascinating about her? I mean, she's a real image icon. There's a real diva icon. And one of the things that I think would be really interesting to hear about this book is kind of that side of things from the inside. Because her career, of course, has had lots and lots of ups and downs, and she's had breakdowns in the public eye. She's had movies that have failed and all sorts of stuff, but then she's come right back with amazing records, and it's amazing. I'm so curious to see what her perception on image is, and I'm kind of really excited to see if she does talk about her image and more specifically how that has impacted her life. I reckon you could be onto some really interesting perspectives there. It's an interesting situation.
I'd love to read the chapter on her relationship with is it James Packer?
Yeah, they were together. They were together for a few months. Yeah,
I was going to say Nick Cannon because they seemed very in love with each other, and then suddenly that kind of ended. But yeah, Mariah's definitely had an interesting personal life.
What's the name of that Australian comedian who's famous in America now? Who is Jim Jeffries. Jim Jeffries
Yes.
has a bit of stand-up that he does about being invited by Mariah Carey to James Packer's birthday to perform a set, and it's so funny. You really should look that up. His insight into what she's like is just very, very good. I'm kind of interested in seeing how she understands herself now, because I think, right now, and I could be wrong on this, I think that her image is the All I Want for Christmas Is You song, going massive guns on December and Spotify every year, and just a bunch of memes, her being pushed around on the office chair and stuff so she doesn't have to walk the stage. And, her, I saw one the other day of her just, shoving somebody out of a photo, there's so much Mariah Carey, memeable content out there, and I'm just curious as to whether she gets that.
I'm fascinated that she's still releasing music. Why not just take those All I Want for Christmas royalties and just, retire?
I think, didn't she mention that she has bipolar disorder or something like that a while ago? I'm not sure, so that would be another thing that would be quite interesting to explore in her own written work.
Yeah.
But even I'm thinking now, she went out with Eminem and they had a big fight because they did music videos where people who looked like them were in it, and anyway, there's a lot there.
All right. So last bit of book news before we move into what we're reading. Hulu announced today that they're heading forward with an adaptation of Curtis Sittenfeld's Rodham, the imaginary alternate history where Hillary Clinton never married Bill. Who do we think would make a good cast for this adaptation?
That's a good question. I always thought the book idea was so interesting because, obviously Hillary and Bill Clinton are real people, and then you've got a book about what their life could have been like just on the bookshelf, and I'm like, would it be like reading fan fiction about yourself if you bought it? Would you want to read it? I don't know. I don't know.
I highly doubt she would read it. I just... She's been through enough without somebody reimagining her entire life.
She's
get
a
one
bit
of her
busy,
daughters to play her.
isn't she?
I'd imagine so.
But I don't know. I would cast Margot Robbie because I think you can cast her in anything. Yeah.
I've been doing some.
She's quite versatile.
Yeah, I've been doing some digging around as well. Just looking and seeing who would grab my potentially do something really cool with the role, and I've got two for Bill and two for Hillary. I'm a massive fan of Carey Mulligan, and I actually reckon and I haven't seen her in anything for a while, and I actually think that she could really pull it off. Aside from that, also because this other actress has also done American historical figures before and is amazing at it. Natalie Portman, I actually reckon, would be a really good.
Oh, yeah, she did Jackie Kennedy.
She did, and she was amazing as Jackie Kennedy. And I was just going but does she look like Hillary? When Hillary's younger, and I looked at photos and I'm like, oh, there actually is some similarity there. You could do something with that.
I can see them.
Yeah, and
just new prosthetics, makeup and things.
And then for Bill, I immediately was thinking to myself, oh, Clive Owen would be great, but I actually looked it up. It turns out he's already going to be playing Bill in an American Crime Story series next year. So I was going, okay, well, that's weird. But for a young Bill, I reckon I'm still watching The Great at the moment. So all I'm looking at is thinking, would Nicholas Hoult be a really good Bill Clinton?
Oh.
Would that be...
I don't know. He's too skinny. He's very straight.
He need to put on weight.
I feel he looks like you'd put him in a certain type of role as a posh private school boy or something, but when you give him something, then suddenly he transforms.
This is true.
He was so good in The Favourite. But anyway, I don't know. I feel the last movie I watched was The Disaster Artist. So I feel just picking someone who wildly is completely out of left field, a bit like Tommy Wiseau casting himself as the main character, possibly a vampire, would probably be what I would be doing. So picking someone completely random.
An unknown.
Yes. Tommy Wiseau as Bill Clinton would be amazing.
Stella! I think that would be
Hillary, you're Hillary.
I'm fed up with this world.
Can't tell anyone about my stuff.
Oh, hi, Barack.
Oh, hi, Monica.
Yeah, so that's my peak Tommy Wiseau playing
Love it.
all their characters.
Okay.
It may be great, Hillary.
Let's email Hulu after this. We'll get it done. Okay, so who wants to go first and talk about what they're reading at the moment? Let's go with, I'm going to select one of you at random. Sam.
Okay. I have 2 books that I am reading right now, or I just finished, both of them really. So I finally just finished The Animals in That Country by Laura Jean McKay. It's been going for a while. I literally sped through the first half of it and then took a break because I was busy watching other things, and then I really just finished it last night. So I've spoken a little bit about it before, but it's basically a kind of speculative fiction about a future in Australia where there's a pandemic. It's a bit like a flu. And the symptoms of this flu is that it basically makes you able to understand and communicate with animals. But this, Laura G. McKay takes it to, I guess its inevitable conclusion in the fact that this isn't just like your cat and your dog. This is snakes, this is birds, insects, flies, the rats in the walls and the ants on the ground that you're stepping on and you don't even know, but you can hear them, which I thought was really interesting. And of course, that leads people, it just, society collapses. But at the heart of this story is, this woman who is basically searching for her grandchild. And I thought it would actually make a really interesting miniseries in the way it's structured and her journey, which kind of has parts as she travels through the country to, following her son and, to find her granddaughter before, she thinks that her son will put her grandchild into danger. I won't spoil the ending necessarily, but I think the ending of it was satisfying and appropriate for the type of book that it is. It's really fascinating. I really loved the way the author wrote the animals' characters and gave them, a certain, each animal type had its own way of speaking and its own reference point. Birds in particular are terrifying. They want to eat everyone. They see you all as like, basically prey. They're going to kill you later, or they're going to wait for you to die and then eat you. So there was really kind of interesting the way she wrote their dialogue, almost like poetry. Mark, I know you read it as well, and I know you had a different experience of this book.
I'm just biting my tongue.
Yeah, I like it. I like weird fiction, and this is like a very weird. I like sort of story.
I like weird fiction as well. This one just didn't quite do it for me. I'm not gonna go into it now because then it'll turn into a fight. But,
I'll find you later.
I know that Nick is a huge fan of this book as well.
Yes, I was lucky enough to be able to review it and then also interview Laura Jean McKay as well, alongside Ben, who is also a massive, massive fan of this book, and I loved it. I was completely engrossed in this world, and particularly, as you head into the latter half of the book where things just start completely breaking down, you're losing all sense of anything making sense at all, which I just thought was incredible. And I'll keep I will not go any further because Mark and I have already had a couple of arguments about this book. But I loved it. I thought it was incredible.
I mean, I'm still left with questions. I'm still left with, what happens next and what did the whales really want, and
Don't talk about the whales. I don't want to talk about the whales. It's too sad.
But it was fascinating, and I felt kind of interesting in terms of its content, in terms of the timeliness of it. Of course, she wrote this a while ago. She obviously had no way of knowing, that it would be released, within this, period of coronavirus. But I felt it was a really interesting look at animals, look at country. It was very Australian. You got a real sense of the environment. It was very sensory experience reading it. I really liked it.
All right.
Yeah.
What's your second book?
My second book is All Systems Red by Martha Wells. Have you read this?
I've got it. I've not read it yet.
You need to read this. You need to read this. So I've been seeing this kind of floating around in my periphery for a little while now, and I finally was able to read the first in this series. So I think it's 4 novellas, a full-length novel, and then I think there's another novella coming out after that. So I'm excited for what the future holds for me, because I will definitely be reading this series. For those of you who don't know, it's basically they're called the Murderbot Diaries, and the series is called, and it's about a sec unit, which is like a soldier robot, a protective robot that follows around these explorers, these colonists and researchers on this planet, but it's managed to hack its own system, so it doesn't follow the orders that it's given because it has to. It chooses to continue to protect these people, and they don't know that it's actually not required to follow their orders if it doesn't want to. And really all it wants to do is just watch TV all day and read books in the feed. So I thought that was a really interesting perspective. It's this an interesting character because it's genderless, it's a robot, it just wants to live its own life. There's that kind of internal, I guess, conflict where it's really just about trying to discover itself, wanting to protect its secret, and live, its own life freely. But then in this first novel, you've got this really interesting external conflict where the explorers on this planet basically find out that they've been given the wrong maps, and they haven't been told about the dangers that are actually on this planet. And throughout the course of the novella, you sort of find out why. And the sec unit and its team, interact and grow in their relationships. And it was, really interesting to see. But it's really driven by this character, and it's all from that perspective. And I think Martha Wells has done an absolutely fantastic job of bringing this character to life so completely and making you love it so much at the same time. So I highly recommend it. I need to, there's a box set of the first 4 novellas coming out, I think, in September. So that's going on the pre-order.
Excellent. All right. Thanks for that, Sam. Cass, what have you been reading?
So I'm doing the Reading Rush, which used to be Booktopian. So it's like a week-long readathon where lots of people are trying to read as much as they can to meet these 7 prompts. So I started with a book called Sorry I'm Late, I Didn't Want to Come, which is by Jessica Pan, and it's subtitled An Introvert's Guide to Living Dangerously, where she realizes like she's somehow ended up with a life where she's a freelancer and she's just at home and she only talks to her barista and her husband. So she starts to like try and get out of her comfort zone, and even though she's terrified of talking to other people, like that's going to be the key to helping her build like the life that she wants. So I started that. It's pretty fun. The next one is, this is for the prompt, a book you don't usually, in a genre you don't usually read. And I buy a lot of non-fiction books, and I find it difficult to read them just because like they're so dense and there's so many names, and like when I read, I tend to focus on dialogue. And I tend to skip over like descriptive huge chunks of text just because that's what's interesting to me. But if you do that in a non-fiction book, you can end up like 3 years later in like 2 paragraphs. You're just like, what happened? Anyway, The Brain That Changes Itself is all about neuroplasticity. So the idea that like our brain can compensate for different senses being damaged or impaired in some ways. And the idea that like you can change your brain, which was actually quite a novel new idea that only kind of came about recently, which is very cool, but again, it's very dense, like it's very sciencey. And I'm like holding the dictionary over words and be like, what does this mean? I haven't done science since year 10.
I bought that book when it first came out. Sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say, I bought that book when it first came out, right. And I was like, this book will stop me from being stupid, because it'll teach me how to program my brain to be a smart person, and it's just sitting on my e-reader and has been for 8 years. I
have a physical copy of the book, and I don't know where it was. I bought a digital copy of the book. Yeah, what else am I reading? I just finished Jonesy, which is by Sam Humphries, and I can't remember who it's illustrated by, which is about this girl, and she's in high school, and she's a teenager who like kind of looks down on all the mainstream stuff that's happening. and it's got this gorgeous bright art style and like these amazing colors and everything. And her big secret is that she has a secret crush on this pop star and she makes a zine about him, but also that she has the power to make anyone fall in love with anything or anyone, except it doesn't work on herself.
Oh.
So she can't make like her crush fall in love with her, but she can divert people's attention. And her dad runs a donut shop, and it's cute, and they get into like all kinds of hijinks. Yeah, so I finished that, and I'm just thinking of what else I'm reading. There is something else. The Little Book of Big Feelings, which is by, I think she's an artist named Marzi. This is a very old NetGalley arc, so it's out now. You can buy it now, and probably could have like sometime. But it's basically just like a very gentle illustrated guide to different kinds of emotions and how, like, the good things and the bad things about them, and how to acknowledge and like utilize them. So I think that's sort of what I've been looking for in the comics that I've read this month, because I've read a couple that have touched on mental illness, but not particularly deeply. It was very kind of surface level, whereas it's like, this is how I feel when I feel like this, and this is a thing that happened, and this is how I dealt with it. Or here's some like tips on how to handle blah, and so on, which is really good. I've nearly finished it. I was very surprised.
Those are all amazing recommendations, Cass. You always bring such interesting titles to us. I love that concept about the girl who can make anybody fall in love with anything, but it doesn't work on herself. That's such a great idea.
Yeah, I think her dad's got like a secret power as well, because she wants to get a tattoo, and he's like, "Don't make me use the hand." And she's like, I don't care if you use the hand. And then he's like, "This is the hand that like quells all arguments." And I think like his power is like getting people to calm down, because she's just, that's not fair.
I love it. All right, thank you for that, Cass. Nick, what about you?
I feel slightly silly because you guys have brought a whole bunch of books. Do you want to know how many books I've brought? One book. But yeah, but I fortunately have just finished today Traveller at the Gates of Wisdom by John Boyne, who many may know as the writer of the boy in striped pajamas. Which and the book is, I have absolutely loved it. It's kind of, the best way to describe it, it's essentially like the story of one family told through millennium. So it's like told through like a kaleidoscope of interconnecting characters in each chapter. And as the story evolves, you know, they're all connected to one family, and then as the story evolves, people in the family change, the names change, the setting changes, but you start to see like a pattern emerging, that despite, you know, being separated by like, you know, generations, all of the kind of the essence of the family and the people in it kind of remain the same. It's like doing stories told across millennia like this. I mean, it has been done before, and I think probably the most recent one would be something like David Mitchell would have done with Cloud Atlas. But the big difference here is, unlike David doing like, you know, using like a sci-fi element and kind of really wearing that on its sleeve, this is a lot more emotionally driven. There's no like science fiction element to it. This is just storytelling about life, death, love, betrayal. And kind of the thing that really stuck out for me is that, you know, like, while, you know, you're seeing all of these stories of all of these people, the story for them ends when they die, which is similar for all of us. But John Boyne continues it on, and he's showing, and there's a weird cycle going on of life after death, and life still continues even after all of these people die. It's a really intense read. It's a very exhausting read, but at the end of it, you're kind of in awe of just the human spirit, really, in a way, and the fact that so many of the ideas and essence of this family still continues long after many members of it have passed on, which is actually quite a nice sentiment from the book, really.
So, spoiler alert: everybody dies.
Well, isn't that the case for everything, really, when you think about it? What does this book turn me into? We all die in the end. But yeah, no, it's a really great book, and it's very ambitious. Like, I think it's the most wide-scoped book of Boyne's that I've read. But I loved it. I mean, you'll be completely emotionally exhausted at the end of it, but it's definitely worth your time. Really good read.
What of his other books have you read?
Well, Boyne in Striped Pajamas was one, which obviously, given the subject matter, if anyone has also seen the film, is not for the faint of heart. And the only other one I've read is the Telegram Man, which is the other one that he's really known for. And I actually quite like that one. I preferred it to Boyne Striped Pajamas, but I must say, I just like how ambitious this one is. Those ones, by comparison, because it's more of its own self-contained. There's more of a self-contained element to it, while this one just feels wide, all-encompassing, and it's tackling big themes and big concepts and big ideas that are prevalent in all of our lives. And it's just, but the way it does it is really fascinating and really big. So absolutely love it.
And is that out now, or is that coming soon?
It's out. So for context, we're recording this Thursday, July 23rd. It comes out today, in fact. So today it came out, and I actually sent the review off to Liv earlier today. So there will be a review up on the blog around, if you're listening to this on Friday or Saturday or Sunday, there will be a review up on the Booktopian blog of this book as well. So highly recommended. Make sure you get a copy.
Great. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for sharing your book recommendations with us. And now we come to the part of the show where you guys have to roll your sleeves up and get. I'm trying to think of a sports metaphor, and I'm drawing a blank.
I'm just thinking about Joe saying short game's a good game.
So it's book fight, punching sound effects. There we go. So the way that this works is that I'm going to ask you a series of questions. There's all kinds of points up for grabs. Maybe I'll punish you, maybe I won't if you get a wrong answer. I don't know. I tend to make up the rules as I go along. And that's the important thing to remember as well, is that I'm in control. So be nice to me. So the way that this works is that we each need to choose a buzzer sound that you will shout out to buzz in and claim the question when it's asked. And then that question is yours to answer. So Sam, what word would you like to use to buzz in?
Can I just use my name?
Sure.
I'll remember that.
My name's a word.
All right. What about you, Cass?
I guess I'll just use my name as well.
Okay, what about you, Nick?
I love how your energy went down after that. I am going to go with, I'm going to steal a name from the animals in that country, and my buzzword will be Sue!
Okay.
Even though I don't watch The Walking Dead.
These are the least imaginative buzzers we've had in this show so far. So I'm very disappointed in all of you. I'm going to subtract a point from each of you.
This is about efficiency. I need to be able to buzz in quickly. This is a strategic decision.
Yeah. There's no here to make friends, she's here to win.
Yeah.
That's right.
No,
Would you prefer if my buzzer was a loud sound or something?
Nobody wants that.
My podcast listeners probably would not.
Okay. Are we ready? Children.
Yes.
Quiet in class. All right. Which book won the 2020 Miles Franklin Award? Sam.
The Yield?
Yes. Ding.
Yay!
Okay. Question 2. Speaking of awards, which major book awards long list is going to be announced next week?
Sue! The Booker Awards. The Booker Award long list.
Dial it down, dude. Okay, now I've made a snap decision with this next one. This is a question where you could get 7 points or you could get 0 points, because I'm going to ask you to list every book in a series, and if you get one of them wrong, you get nothing, but if you get them all right, you get a point for each one. So name every book in A Song of Ice and Fire, including the titles of the 2 as yet unpublished novels.
Throw this to Sam because I don't know. I know
Do we have to do it in order?
I probably shouldn't have said that thing about you guys getting 0 points before
I can do some. Sue, I'll have a go.
Okay.
Game of Thrones, A Feast for Crows, A Dance of Dragons, okay, I've got three. Winds of Winter and A Dream of Spring are the two that haven't been published.
Isn't there like a can I help?
Yeah.
No teamwork allowed.
No.
I can't remember the second one. There's the second and the third one, I think, are the ones that I'm missing.
There's a sword one.
Storm of Swords. Storm of Swords? No. I think.
I'm helping. I will switch your camera up, Sam.
Oh God.
Oh, I need to do that.
I can't remember the last one. There's one more.
You can chat you privately.
Yeah, privately chat me. Quick.
No, private chat. No.
Yeah, but I get no points if I get this wrong.
I know, it's hilarious.
Oh no, okay. I know the name of this. There's one more. It's the second one that I can't remember the name of. Yeah, I'm buggered. I got nothing.
Anybody? Okay, I'll open it up. Anybody want to jump in and help? I'm not awarding points, but if you want to,
help me have his misery.
You've done the dragon one. Is there a shield one? I've read all of these. I should know.
All right. The answer is A Game of Thrones, A Clash of Kings.
That's the one I was looking for.
A Clash of Kings.
Storm of Swords, Feast for Crows, Dance with Dragons, The Winds of Winter, and A Dream of Spring. I also would have accepted A Time for Wolves because that was the initial title of A Dream of Spring that he announced. But it's changed.
Okay. So
but who knows? The way those books are going, there could be 8 or 9 or 10 of them, or just stay on 5 forever.
Yeah. We'll see.
Okay, so 0 points.
Brutal.
Okay.
That's harsh.
Next question. The Evening and the Morning is an upcoming novel by Ken Follett. What Uber bestseller is it the prequel to?
Cass.
The
Pillars of Earth.
The Pillars of the Earth. Very good. All right. Well, that was a very clean, quick question. Okay. Which novel opens with this line? All this happened, more or less.
That's so generic.
Yeah, that's really.
It's super famous. I feel like every week I ask the first line question and I get silence, and then I'm like, it's super famous, and nobody gets it.
Well, I was still like,
This happened more or less.
In your defense, Mark, if this was last week, I would have absolutely been straight on it because I definitely love the Voyage of the Dawn Treader and would have been all over the.
It's not Voyage of the Dawn Treader, and it's not last week, Nick. It's this week, and the
What's the genre?
Yeah, give us a hand.
It's a famous 20th century American science fiction novel.
Hitchhiker's no.
Is it a Philip? Okay, Sue. Is it a Philip K. Dick novel?
You say Sue to buzz in with an answer, not a question. I asked the question. I will give you a clue. I will allow the clue. It's not a Philip K. Dick novel.
Yeah, I don't know.
But it's Sam.
No, you finish your clue.
Right. I'll give you a clue. There's a number in the title. And it's not Catch-22.
Cass. 1984.
Nope. Do we all give up?
Sue?
Yeah.
Is there a book called Seven? I have no idea. I have no idea.
I'm going off movies now. Cass, is it Slaughterhouse 5?
Yes, Cass! Cass is the win.
That's very good.
Well done.
I only book I could think of with a number in the title.
Okay, so we're getting close to the end. The next question you have the potential to get a lot of points with. So just going by the tallies right now, Sam is on 1 point, Cass is on 2, and Nick is on 1. So Cass is in the lead. But it's still anybody's game. If somebody can name as many books as you can that take place on the ocean.
Can we do this independently, or like we have to do it all in one go? Like, for example, Cass, the Ancient Mariner. Cass, Moby Dick.
Well, if you buzz in, you just name as many as you can. So I'll take that as you buzzing in, Cass. So you did right. So what did you do?
The Ancient Mariner.
It's a poem, but I'll allow
Moby Dick.
Moby Dick. Can I buzz one in as well?
Part of the Sea.
No, Cass is.
Painful Beauty. I can't think of anything else right now. That Jojo Moyes one about the boat, going somewhere. I can't think of anything else. The Boat by Namley. Is that who wrote it? Yeah.
Yep.
I can't think of anything else right now, but I'll come back.
Okay, I believe that's 5. Sam, go.
The Life of Pi.
Yep.
Ooh.
Moby Dick.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
The books about the movies that Russell Crowe was in.
The Lord of the Master and Commander.
Oh, come on.
Master and Commander book. That guy.
Yeah. Patrick O'Brien's Aubrey Maturin novels. I think that one was based on a book called The Far Side of the World. I'll allow it.
Okay.
Sue, I've got 2.
All right.
Okay.
Well, one is The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, obviously.
Oh my God, let it go.
And The Odyssey. Homer's poem, The Odyssey. That takes place at sea the whole time.
Okay, I'll allow it. Okay, so that was good. So so Sam got 3 points off that question. Cass, I count 5, and Nick, you have 2 off that. So
Awesome, Cass.
our totals are: Sam is on a total of 4, Cass is on a total of 7, and Nick is on a total of 3. And the last question: complete this famous quote. All the world's a stage.
Sam.
Oh, yeah.
And the people merely players?
I'll give it to you. The actual quote is and all the men and women merely players, but men and women are people. All right, I'll give you that, Sam. I also would have accepted and everyone has their own part. How was I to know which way the story would go? How was I to know you'd break my heart? Which is take a bow by Madonna.
Bro, jeez Louise.
Unacceptable.
Niche questions today.
Okay. So niche.
So Sam got a total of 5, Cass got 7, Nick got 3. I'm giving myself 1 for the Madonna thing because I thought that was good. But that means the Cass is our winner.
I'm sensing some bias in this particular quiz because we've been doing this for 5 weeks now and never have we ever offered saying with the particular Game of Thrones question, if you get them wrong, you get 0. Savage!
I told you, it's my quiz. And I get to make up the rules, and the rules are based on mood, and I will switch off your camera and your microphone if you want.
I edit the show! You can't do that!
We'll just edit you out.
Well done, Cass. We didn't need to go to a tiebreaker question because you were the clear winner. Well done. That is book fact done for another week. So that brings us to the end of our show. Thank you so much, Nick, Sam, and Cass, for joining me.
Thanks so much.
And the Weekend Booktopian is produced by Nick Wasiliev. And you can find links to the books that we've discussed today in the episode description, or you can just find them at booktopia.com.au. I'm sure that Nick is going to jump up right now and search for Voyage of the Dawn Treader, so you can get a good and you can listen to all of our shows for free right now on SoundCloud and iTunes, including our recent podcast interview with Jay Christoph. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Weekend Booktopian. Until then, thanks for listening and never stop reading.
Thank you for listening to the Booktopia podcast channel. Don't forget, you can subscribe to us on SoundCloud and iTunes for free, and get access to hundreds of author discussions, book analysis pieces, and more. Or, if your eyes need a workout, head to Booktopia TV on YouTube. Don't forget, for all books featured in this podcast, and for access to a whole bunch of other fun content on our blog, head to Booktopia, Australia's local bookstore, at booktopia.com.au.